Take him away.
Hey gang, I'm JP and welcome back to Egotastic FunTime! In part 1 of the season finale In Arcadia Ego, Picard and the crew of the Lost Serena arrive at Soji's homeworld through a transwarp conduit with the Romulans and a Borg cube hot on their tail. After gently crash landing due to being taken down by a giant space orchid, Jean-Luc makes an unexpected discovery about Data's family that could lead to the destruction of all biological life in the galaxy. It looks like we might be headed toward the end of the Federation, and just like I predicted last week, Data's brother is alive and well on Coppelius, you guys. But first, there's only one more episode left of Star Trek Picard before we say goodbye and we begin the long wait for Season 2 next year. And I think it's only appropriate that we begin this video with an answer to the biggest mystery we've been faced with yet this season. What the hell does In Arcadia Ego mean? Soji's homeworld of Coppelius is a reference to the 19th century ballet Coppelia about a young man who becomes infatuated with a realistic-looking doll that comes to life. In Arcadia are actually a set of 2 paintings from the early 17th century. The translation is, "Even in Arcadia, there I am," which is a reference to death. Greeks of the time mostly led urban lives in cities close to the sea. Arcadia, located in the middle of Peloponnese, lacked cities and led a more shepherd lifestyle. Arcadia was considered a pure, rural, idyllic utopia, much like the synthetic community on Coppelius was shown to be. One of the major themes of Star Trek Picard has been mortality, looking back on a life lived as it gets closer and closer to ending, the fragility of life as we've lost friends and even ideologies along the way. The In Arcadia Ego paintings is a realization that the discovery of art has been the creative response of humankind to the shocking fact of mortality, that even in Arcadia, death rules over us all. Many times throughout the season, synths have been referred to as art. To me, it doesn't seem like a coincidence at all that there are 2 different Arcadia paintings and 2 different daughter paintings made by Data. That all the synths also come in pairs. It's an expression of duality, a light side and a dark side that very much ties into the relationship between Data and his brother Lore. So far throughout this entire series, there's been absolutely no mention of Lore whatsoever. It feels kind of like a blatant and purposeful exclusion by the series creators. Lore is more important to Data's story than B4, Noonien Soong, or Bruce Maddox. Not mentioning him creates a vacuum that will make it all the more satisfying to us when Lore does appear in some way, shape, or form. Look, Data is no better or worse than Lore. If he had had the same life experiences that Lore had, Data could have ended up the same way as his brother. Lore was made with emotions from day one. He wasn't treated well by humans because they feared him. He was deactivated for simply being the way he was created to be. Data was his replacement, no emotions, an android made to be an inferior copy of Lore. Data had the luxury of being able to figure out who he was and what he wanted to be before he was given the gift of emotions. Again, duality, what someone could become when shaped by unexpected circumstances. Once the crew arrive in Synth Town, they're surprisingly greeted by Alton Inigo Soong. He's a human who looks just like Data. Turns out Alton is the son of Data's creator, Noonien Soong. Alton says, and I quote, "My father had me, he created Data." Oh, really? Had and create are interchangeable words in this context. Also, it's not true. If your father had you, he created Lore. Then he created Data. Alton. Lore and Data both considered themselves to be the sons of Noonien Soong. Before, Noonien literally did have Lore in storage somewhere, and after that is when he created Data.
Also, Dr. Soong never had a biological son, JP, you stupid bastard.
What? He didn't? How do you know that?
Because he made androids.
Oh, so I guess since Steve Jobs made iPhones that he never had any kids?
Yeah, Shut up, JP.
One thing we do know is that making biological bodies for synthetics is pretty easy. Alton Ego, whose initials are AI, by the way, is the resident body man. Alton made it sound like Bruce is the one you need to get if you want to do mind transfers. We also know that Alton is making a golem, a body, in his lab. He asked Dr. Girardi to make amends for killing Bruce by helping to save a life instead of taking a life. The purpose for the golem is to presumably transfer Alton's mind into it, but he doesn't know how. He seems to think Girardi will be able to fill in the blanks to Maddox's research to allow for him the ability to do a mind transfer. On the day the Federation enacted the ban on synthetics, Bruce Maddox stole a data neuron from the Daystrom Institute and disappeared. Alton said that the ban brought out the deceptive side of Bruce, which to me means that he would have wanted to take any shortcut he could to speed up his work, just like he was trying to do in the Measure of a Man episode. The first thing he would have done was try to find where Data stored lore and use lore for his work. Did Bruce Maddox and lore work together to create these synthetics? Did lore have Maddox transfer his mind into a new body and he just made up the persona of Alton Ego soon to try and fool Picard? But with his body being an inferior model that's deteriorating, he now wants to transfer his mind into a new body? With all of this information to consider, my new theory now is that Alton Ego Soon, in reality, is telling the truth about who he is and actually is Noonien Soon's biological son, and that he simply wants to transfer his mind into a synthetic body so he can live forever. Why complicate the story more than it needs to be? We actually already have a new lore in this series, you guys. On Coppelius, Picard meets Sutra. We all meet Sutra. Nice to meet you, Sutra. She's the sister of Jana, who was killed by Captain Vandermeer on the Ibn Majid 9 years ago. Except for B-Flower's brother, Sutra is the first synth to lose their other half. Years ago, the synths sent out a ship from Coppelius to make first contact and let the universe know of their existence so that they can join the rest of everybody else out there who's trying to seek out new life and new civilizations so that they could boldly go where no androids have gone before. And biologicals killed them simply for existing. This goes back to the duality that I mentioned before. Her sister being murdered changed Sutra's path. She became conflicted, feeling emotions she's never felt before: loss, betrayal, anger, rage, revenge. She threw herself into the teachings of Serac to try and suppress these foreign emotions that were overtaking her. And yes, we also learn in this episode that the part of a Vulcan's DNA that allows them to perform mind melds can be synthesized in a laboratory, because technology has advanced beyond what was possible 20 years ago in the Star Trek universe. You know, kind of like how technology advances now in the world that we live in. Thanks to advancements in technology, I now have all the world's porn that ever existed in my pocket. Sutra has now become the part of Data's legacy that always existed inside of him. She is now the lore of this story. It's also quite obvious that when Bruce Maddox created Sutra and Jana, that he meant for them to be Data's daughters. That's why they look exactly like Soji and Daj. That means that Soji and Sutra are sisters, two sides of the same coin who have both lost their other half. They are now bound together by the same pain. While Soji feels she's finally home with her people, she's also questioning if taking life is justifiable when trying to save other lives. We're gearing up for another Data lore battle, you guys, so hold on to your hats. After mind melding with Girardi, Sutra believes she fully understands the message left 200,000 years ago that the Zhat Vash belief predicts the synth-led destruction of all life in the galaxy. Sutra believes the message was sent by and meant for synthetics, and that they were also given some really cool blueprints for a communication device to call them in if they ever need some help exploding biologicals to death. This makes sense to me that's why many Romulans go crazy after experiencing the admonition. It wasn't meant for biological minds. But it seems to me that the Romulans who didn't go crazy understood what's up, that synths are going to eventually get everybody killed. They just didn't understand that that would only happen if they succumbed to their own fears. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I, for one, think it's all a huge trick on both sides to see if everyone will destroy each other, like it's some sort sort of big test being given out by some sort of benevolent beings out there who like to mess with people. The Q already put humanity on trial. Maybe they decided to add synthetics to the list as well. Could all of this just be the Q continuing throwing up a big double dumbass on everybody? We finally get a reminder that I said would be coming any episode now, because they haven't talked about it in forever, that Jean-Luc is suffering from Irumodic syndrome and it's going to kill him someday. He said he's known for years about the possibility of this brain abnormality becoming something serious, and now it has. We originally saw Jean-Luc suffering from this condition in the TNG finale All Good Things, which took part in an alternate timeline of this exact part of his life. Afterwards, he had Beverly scan his brain to see if he really had the syndrome, and she said, "Yeah, bud, you got it." I loved it when Jean-Luc called the crew together to tell them about his condition, and then he said, "Okay, you know about it, never bring it up again." Later on, Raffi couldn't help herself. She gave him a big hug and told him how much he means to her. The two of them have this relationship and a history together like none we've ever seen before in The Next Generation. It was fun to be reminded of just how uncomfortable Picard is with sentimental moments. She told him that she loved him, and he was kind of like froze up by it. He was very uncomfortable. She said, oh, you don't have to say it back. He was totally relieved when she said that, and he starts to walk away, and then he kind of looks back and says, "Oh, Raffi, I love you too," and then he keeps on walking. It was an absolutely great moment. Some of you are wondering if Jean-Luc will get the opportunity at some point in this series to be given a new body, or perhaps the Q will give him an offer to join them. If those options are given to Jean-Luc at some point, I hope he turns them down. It just feels like something Jean-Luc would do. He would go out in style, off into the sunset, and let it all end. All good things, you guys. How amazing was it to see that Borg cube come out through the transwarp conduit, even though it was instantly taken down by the synth-made space orchids, which, by the way, I love the idea of those as a defense network. The orchids, they disable and take down ships that takes them down to the surface without killing anyone, and they also kind of look like pieces of art. After learning what happened to Jana and Bee Flower when they set out to make first contact with biologicals, it now makes sense why the synthetics aren't allowed to make ships that would let them get off the planet. Them leaving the planet could lead to their deaths, just like it led to Bee Flower and Jana's death. You can make some space orchids to protect us, sure, but you're not allowed to leave. And I'm betting, though, that Alton soon has a ship hidden somewhere on the planet in case he ever needs to bone out. With Seven's Cube now out of commission on the planet's surface, I'm betting she transfers all the XBs over and we see her flying the Borg sphere from now on, which is right there. You can see it in the episode. The last two episodes, there's a Borg sphere. Why even have that so blatantly in our faces if it wasn't going to be used at some point? And now they got the perfect opportunity to use it. Also, don't forget, Ramda is probably still on the cube in a coma. I'm guessing she'll be returning at some point with a story to tell. Right now, Commodore O is back in full Romulan regalia, you guys, and she's on her way to Coppelius with a fleet of 218 Romulan warbirds. Sutra killed Saga as a way to rally her fellow synthetics to join her cause, and she blamed it all on Narek before letting him go. She's probably hoping for a fight, so she has an excuse to call the admonition beings for help. The first time we met Narissa, Narissa. She was in human form and part of Starfleet. No one except Elnor has seen her as a Romulan otherwise. I'm guessing the next time we see Narissa, she'll be back in a Starfleet uniform and might possibly be in charge of arresting Picard and the La Serena crew to bring them in for going against the ban or whatever charge they want to come up with. I don't think the Federation knows what's going on with the Romulans or the admonition, but I don't think Admiral Clancy is ready to side with Picard just yet. She's been duped by O, just like everyone else has. Is it possible that the 200,000-year-old information left behind in the admonition was nothing more than a test to see if humanity would end up destroying themselves as a self-fulfilling prophecy? Is Alton Soong actually lore in disguise waiting to bring forth the destroyer of worlds? You can let me know what you think by joining the conversation below. I'll see you very soon, and as always, I hope all your times are egotastic fun times. Love you, bye-bye!